most vivid memory I have was walking out. Greg Skrepin and I were captains, and we're like, and I looked at him as we were getting ready to come out of the tunnel, and I said, I want to make this last. I want to make this last. I don't want this moment to end. The other fourth, fifth year seniors that weren't going to be coming back lined up alongside of us. Usually the captains, we led them out. We jumped up, touched first. Everyone else came out after. We walked out. We walked
That's
out onto
awesome.
the stadium that day to make it last just a little bit
That's pretty
longer.
cool. What's up, everybody? It's Lavar Arrington here, and this one is a dandy this week. I got my man, linebacker extraordinary of the Michigan Wolverines, Erick Anderson. Yes, Mr. Anderson. I'll tell you what, he wasn't in the Matrix, the movie, but golly, you see the way this man played the game at Michigan. He was one of them special agents out there on the field, wreaking havoc, bringing the pain. Won the Butkus Award, won the Lambert Award. It's a bad man. You know what? We get an opportunity to have a conversation with him today on the ballot for this year's Hall of Fame for the National Football Foundation. So I'm not going to hold you up. We're going to get to it. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. You know what time it is. Good in the game. Let's do it. I got my guy E here. He's a OG Butkus Award winner. He's a OG co-defensive MVP of the Big Ten. Late '80s, well, early '90s guy. Late '80s phenom out of high school. He's a Michigan man, as you can see in the background on the wall. You made that 37 mean something at Michigan. Just talk to me first off. How are you doing? How you been? What is Erick Anderson up to these days post football?
Yeah, no, I'm doing great. Thanks, Lavar. Appreciate having me on. No, I'm doing great. I For the last 20 some years, I've been teaching here in Shaker Heights, Ohio. I know I'm living in Ohio.
Shaker
Uh,
Heights. Know about
um,
Shaker.
yeah, no, but it's been great. Just finished up the last day of school yesterday. I teach adapted phys ed, so all of our students that can't access the general curriculum in phys ed, that's who I work with, K through 12. So I've been grinding it out, teaching for the last 20 some years, but wouldn't change it for the world. But physically, mentally, emotionally, I'm in a good place. So really good, really good.
That's awesome. All right, so you mentioned Shaker Heights, Ohio. You're a Michigan guy, but you were able to be a part of some real classic battles. But before you get to and by the way, are you still high school coaching?
No, I'm actually not coaching. I actually
Not
stopped
coaching anymore.
coaching several years back. Both of my
Okay.
daughters, as you can see from the jerseys back here, you got a Spartan jersey up on this side and a
Yep.
Northeastern. They played college sports, so when
Okay.
they were getting to the age of playing in high school and then in college, I didn't want to be that dad that coached everybody else's kid, but then was absent from his own. So I stopped coaching
Understandable.
a few years ago just so I could enjoy being a father and watch my daughters play. So
It's the same reason why I walked away. I
yeah,
agree with you there. You don't get those this time back with them.
no, you
So
don't.
that makes a ton of sense. Their road to making it to college, your road to making it to college, success to me is something that is taught, it's learned, and there's a process to it, and you got to keep paying the toll and stay true to the process of having success. How has the game of football impacted Erick Anderson in terms of that approach from the time you started playing until now? How has football in the beginning, the origin of it, how's it impacted your life, and how does it impact you now, even today?
Yeah, no, I think and, obviously anybody that has played the game, I think at any level, and no matter whether you consider the time invested. Um, a long time or a short time, I think football has had a tremendous impact on my life, and continues to have an impact on the type of man that I am, type of father that I am, and recently probably going to be the type of grandfather that I am.
Awesome.
So yeah, so
Congrats.
thank you, appreciate it. No,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
it really, from work ethic to prolonged gratification where it's not necessarily looked at as instant gratification. You have to work hard, to the team aspect. There's just, I mean, I think there are too many lessons to sit and list. But I think that it is that work ethic, that belongingness to a team, that commonality that you have with anybody that has played the game. I mean, we met for the first time just a little while back, Lavar, and as we sat there, it was as if we had been friends, you know, our whole lives.
Hmm.
There's that commonality, that I think all sports has, but I think a unique thing, for football, something that impacted me is the fact that it is a team sport. Um, you try and achieve things individually, but never at the sacrifice of being part of the team.
Hmm.
The team is the most important thing. And I think that you take that in life, those types of lessons you take in life, and they continue to work. I'm a teacher now, but I don't teach alone. I'm a
Hmm.
community of teachers. I work with kids that have different needs. I bring a little area of expertise, but I also have to draw on my occupational therapist, my physical therapist, the instructional aides. Everybody is part of the team, and nobody is more important than that individual, that student. That has to
Hmm.
come first and foremost. And so that's our focus. And I think I learned that through football. And I think I learned that through athletics. Bo Schembechler was my first coach in college.
Crazy.
And it was, that's the reason I went to Michigan, was to be one of his players, one of his boys.
Nice.
But yeah, so I mean, it's impacted me. It's impacted my children. It impacts my relationship with my wife. So it's always there.
Hmm. You talked about playing for Bo, but that '91 season was pretty special uh, on a couple different fronts. Talk to me about '91 for the Michigan Wolverines and
Well,
how that was for you. You know how you played a part in that.
yeah, well, I mean, 91 was the culmination of several years of hard work. It was my senior year. We had an amazing offense. We had an amazing defense. Things really started to fall into line, into place for us. Again, I look at it and I go, it seemed like a culmination, but I mean, I won my first year. I started all 4 years. We won Big Ten championships all 4 years. But that last season, I think, was very special. I mean,
Hmm.
we had Desmond Howard.
Desmond
We
won,
had
right?
young,
Hmm.
yeah, we had young guys like Tyrone Wheatley,
Hmm.
that were just coming up, that were able to feed off of our experiences. We had on the defense, we had Chris Hutchinson, was a
Hmm.
year younger than
D
me,
tackle.
that grew into a captain.
Hmm.
We had Corwin Brown, who was
Hmm.
in our backfield, that was ended up being a captain. Played in the pros for years. We were just, I mean, we had so many guys that really, I mean, we had Greg Skrupnik. We had, you could throw names out there. I mean, it was just, and the team was, but it was focused on the team.
Hmm.
It was not there was not a single individual that put themselves first. And it really was. It started out, our first, against Notre Dame, to start out with, Desmond being able to catch, we hadn't beaten Notre Dame in the 3 years that I was playing. They had our number. But we went into it very confident, and we it battled, and it uh, you know, uh, came down to Desmond making a miraculous catch, throw from Elvis into the corner. Everybody has seen it. So I mean, that's what really started out and got us going, knowing that we believed in ourselves, that this is something that we probably are going to have a pretty special season.
You remember your stat line in that Notre Dame game?
I do not. I do not. I do not. That that's one thing. People have asked. What are some of the memories you have from your playing days? Um, I don't remember a lot of plays. I liken it to when you're in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and playing football for me was not a conscious thing. It was instinctual. So I would even come off on the sidelines, and Jim Herman was our linebackers coach. Lloyd Carr was our defensive coordinator. I'd come off after a 12 play, series. We get them stopped, and we'd come off, and they'd be like, Eric, what happened on that third play? Who tried to block you? I don't know. Well, you
Yeah.
made the tackle. Did I? I don't know. Well, the guard looked like I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
never really knew what happened during the game
That felt
until
your
I'd
way.
go
He was
back and
in the
watch film.
Matrix. Yeah.
It
That's
was. It
awesome.
really was. Things were slowed down, but I don't remember. Even to this day, I have friends that that can remember every play that they played, every snap, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
jealous
Mm-hmm.
because most of the plays I remember are probably things that I wish I would have done differently.
Mm.
I
You know,
remember, missing a tackle, or I remember, not checking out of a certain defense to get the defense into the right thing. And
mhm,
that's what sticks out for me as opposed to, all the plays
the
that,
good
I
thing.
probably wish I
Yeah.
wish I could remember.
Well, it's interesting because when you look at it that way, it makes it even better when you say, okay, well, somebody watched the plays and somebody saw the stat line because you were an All American.
Yeah.
Uh, you won the Butkus. Yeah, I mean, I think you did. You get the Lombardi that year too?
No, it was the Jack Lamb. I
The
was the
Jack
Lombard,
Lambert.
the
You got the Lambert.
Lambert, the
You got the
Butkus,
Lambert.
All American.
Yep.
It was a culmination of
Somebody was paying
yeah.
attention to what you were doing, and
Somebody
that
was watching.
and that's really cool. What were your biggest challenges in those seasons leading up to your senior year? What were some of the best lessons or the adversity? Because so many times, I think again, this being good in the game podcast, we get to certain places, we hear the names, and it's so amazing hearing the stories of what they didn't know, and
Right.
the things that maybe people didn't account for, like you said, not even remembering the plays that you needed to fix. What were some of the things that, like, and you led, if I do believe you led the team in tackling every single year,
All four
so
years. Yeah.
all 4 years. So to do that at Michigan, that is unheard of. To
Yeah.
be at a major institution and an institution of so much history and value connected to it, to lead that team and that unit, that outfit in tackling every single year. How do you what's what's the mindset? What are you thinking during the week while you got classes, or what are you thinking during practice? What led to Erick Anderson being special? Because that's a hard thing to do in a place like Michigan.
No, and I appreciate that, Lavar. I mean, I think that you said it very great, very eloquently. I mean, it is not something, and it wasn't something that I expected to do. When coming out of high school, or even my freshman year that I was redshirted. I honestly, I went into Michigan with very open eyes. I knew that Michigan had, and that was back in the time when we had over 120 guys, 130 guys on a team, lots of scholarship guys, everybody coming into Michigan at that point in time, and we had backs that we were stacked,
Hmm.
that had they gone someplace else, they probably would have started after their freshman year. Linebackers were the same way. I mean, I actually went into Michigan. I thought I was going to be a linebacker, and I got into got into Michigan my freshman year, and there was an offensive playbook in my locker. I was
Mm,
actually I redshirted as a fullback my freshman year,
mm,
so I played the demonstration squad fullback. So I got to actually play against all the guys that I would then compete with to
hmm.
try and get that starting spot.
Grant was there at that time, wasn't he?
JJ, yep, JJ,
Yeah, yeah.
JJ was there. Yep, JJ
Hmm.
Grant, John Milligan. I mean, we had a lot of great. We had a lot of great linebackers. Neil Simpson was a guy that was in my class, came out of Detroit, and he
Mhm,
actually played as a true freshman. So when I was
mhm.
redshirt playing running back, he was actually starting at
Mm,
inside linebacker as a true
wow.
freshman. I was not physically gifted, to say that I went into it thinking that as a freshman I'd be able to play. Um, so I mean, I honestly I think what made my experience different was the fact that I only started half the games my redshirt freshman year.
Which is crazy.
I never would have stepped on the field had John Milligan not gotten hurt.
Mhm.
John Milligan crushed his ankle in the Michigan State game, which then led. I was going in and playing some on nickel
Like 3rd downs.
situations.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah, pass
nickel
downs. Mhm,
situations. So I was going in and passing situations. I was a smaller, it's probably maybe 215 at the time. Going in on passing situations, just playing special teams and passing situations. John Milligan gets hurt, and now I'm thrown into, a starting position. Um, so had somebody not gotten hurt, we might not even be sitting here,
right,
LeVar.
having
I
the
mean, truly
conversation, right.
having a conversation.
Sure.
Um, but I think what really put me on the track of excellence was the tutelage. The having John Milligan not just be in my ear and help me as a young freshman linebacker, but he was unselfish to where he made me a better linebacker, and I did not give up at that spot. Even when he got healthy, I
Mhm.
didn't give them a reason to take me out. And that is a credit to
Mm.
John Milligan, to JJ Grant, to all those guys that were older than me,
Mhm,
um, that made me better, not for Erick Anderson's sake, but for the team.
mhm,
John Milligan was sacrificed. He sacrificed his starting role to make me a better linebacker.
mm.
And he did not complain. He just kept working hard. And I asked him years later, I go, John, how could you do that? That is so unselfish. I go, I don't know if I'd have had that in me. I don't know if I'd have had that in me, that character to be able to say, I'm going to make this guy that's ahead of me, I'm going to make him better to make it harder for me to come back and earn my spot back.
Mhm.
And he told me years later, he said, Eric, he said, if I was going to win my spot back, I wanted to win it against the best you. I didn't want to hinder you. He said, I never would have been able to live with myself if I didn't help you be the best linebacker that you could be. And if I was supposed to be out there, I'd be out there. We ended up
Mhm.
starting together a couple years later. He was a captain my junior year, my fourth year. So we lined up side by side, and that was an
That's
honor for
awesome.
me to be able to line up with him.
Mhm.
But I think those were the lessons. Those were the things that people didn't see, the behind the scenes that, you see the competition, you see the guys competing for a spot, but you don't see that selflessness
Mhm.
of giving up themselves to make somebody else better, even at the sacrifice of themselves.
Which is amazing. I feel like that's because to me, more often than not, and just in my experiences, I don't want to speak out of term, but that's always been the type of guys I've been around. Where
I
they
think that's a winning team. That's a winning program.
yeah.
You call it Penn State, call it Michigan, call it, you know, Alabama. It doesn't matter. You take that emblem off, you take that, the colors off, and just have what is that the essence of being successful.
Mhm.
It's not about the X's and O's. It's not about having the best plays called. It's about having the types of people out there on the field that are willing to look to the left, look to the right, behind and in front, and say, I don't want to let this person down.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a powerful thing. It really is. Um Talk OSU, man. I think you went undefeated against OSU, right?
I was foreign. That's one reason that I have no problem comfortably living in the state of Ohio. I have nothing but good memories, fond memories of
No,
Ohio. So
no
yeah, no,
gold pants, no gold pants handed out, huh?
not on my
Not
watch.
on your watch.
Not on my
What
watch. No.
what was that like? I mean, the rivalry is still very intense, obviously, but I mean, you got to think during your time there was a lot. I mean, and it's such an old rivalry, but your time that was one of the biggest, I would say, most popular times that like influential times of college football and what it represented, and that clashing between you guys back then. I mean, that what was that like? Because that was like iconic figures playing in those games, back in the early 90s, and just very vivid memories of what that looked like, the images of it, like the way it was covered on television, and just what was that like for you?
It was, I mean, it is everything that you would imagine that it would be. I mean, again, I don't have to explain it to you, but for the people listening, I mean, it was, take the most intense moment you've ever been in and now magnify that by 1,000.
Hmm.
Um, it was,
Or
and it was
about
at a
hundred
different,
thousand.
or 100,000. When you're in Ann Arbor,
Right,
over 100,000.
right, right.
Um, but we played at a different time. There was no social media. Games were regional as opposed to national.
Hmm.
There were very few nationally televised, college games. Usually it was a regional game, but Michigan, Ohio State traditionally was always a nationally televised game. So I think that's one thing that led to the mystique of that Michigan, Ohio State. It wasn't just, the Big Ten. It wasn't just the Midwest. It was a national thing.
Hmm.
Um, but we also played at a different time. Like I said, there was not the social media. I did not know a lot of guys that I was playing against other than looking at the scouting report, other than looking at film. I didn't know them personally. And so one thing that I really feel is it was a hatred.
Hmm.
There was a hatred for the other team. There was a respect. I respected the program. I respected the guys that put on the other uniforms, but I did not like them. I didn't
Hmm.
like them. I didn't know them. I didn't want to know them.
Hmm. Hmm.
I wanted, I within the rules, I wanted to each time I wanted to hit somebody, I wanted to hit them so hard they did not want to get up.
Hmm.
Not illegally, not dirty, not in a pile, nothing like that.
Grown
But one
man,
on what,
grown
but
man
grown
business.
man, when Scotty Graham came through the line, that bowling ball, I wanted him to remember that Erick Anderson just tackled him.
Hmm.
Butler Benoit, when he came through that line, Carlos Snow, when he came through that line and tried to block or tried to run, Kirk Herbstreit, when he went back to pass, I
Uh-huh.
wanted him to know Erick Anderson was breathing down his throat, and I wanted him to know that I'm going to hit you. I'm going to hit you hard. I'm going to hit you up to the whistle. Maybe even at that time, maybe leave a little after the whistle, but
Sure.
you're going to get hit.
Hmm.
It's an intensity, but people have also asked, where's the loudest place you've ever played? Um, the one place I remember was at the Horseshoe, and it was my junior year, and it was fourth down and about a yard and a half, 2 yards, and we needed to win in order to share the Big Ten title.
Hmm.
If we tied or lost, we were not in. Iowa would have won outright, I believe, and I think Ohio State would have also shared that title had they tied or won. And it was fourth down at about the 35, 40 yard line of Ohio State. And they called timeout. And standing out on the 35 yard line in the middle of the horseshoe, the ground was shaking. I mean,
Mm.
I know you've been in those positions, but I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that is the loudest outdoor stadium I had heard at that time was until I got to Arrowhead, and that blew everything away. But that stadium at the 35, 40 yard line, the ground was shaking from the Ohio State crowd during the timeout. And it was incredible. I mean, it was incredible. So we quieted them down pretty quickly when they came out, and Greg Fry tried to run an option, and we got him stopped and kicked the field goal and won, and then ended up tying for the Big Ten championship that year. So
What's your greatest memory of the game of football, man?
I think it's the friendships. I mean, I really do. It sounds cliche and it sounds a little bit corny. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a 56-year-old man now and not, just coming right out of it. But I think it's the friendships. And I remember the most vivid memory I have was walking out. I was fortunate that my last collegiate game, regular season game, was at Michigan Stadium, and our tradition at Michigan is, is to run out, touch the M Go Blue, but the M Club supports you, M Go Blue banner, and then go off onto the sidelines. And Greg Skrepin and I were captains, and we're like, and I looked at him as we were getting ready to come out of the tunnel, and I said, I want to make this last. I want to make this last. I don't want this moment to end. And that we ended up holding hands. The other fourth, fifth year seniors that weren't going to be coming back lined up alongside of us. Usually the captains, we led them out. We jumped up, touched first. Everyone else came out after. We walked out. We walked
That's
out onto the
awesome.
stadium that day to make it last just a little bit
That's pretty
longer.
cool.
Just a little bit longer. That's my most vivid memory. So yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
powerful. That's powerful. What would it mean to get a bid for the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame, man? What would that mean to you to get that distinction, that honor?
It would, I mean, it would be one of the greatest honors, of my athletic career. I think aside from, being voted captain by my teammates, winning the Butkus Award and getting to know that Butkus family intimately, it would be right up there with those. I mean, first and foremost, it's an honor just to be nominated. I think this is the third or maybe fourth time that I've been on the ballot. To be nominated is an honor, but to actually get into the hall alongside of the guys that I played with, played against, watched playing now,
Mhm.
watched, whether they came before me or after me, it would be an honor to be able to call myself, one of the best. I went to Michigan, and one of my goals was to leave that school and know in my heart that I did everything that I could, and that I wanted it's the old, what it was it I want to be able to walk down the street and say, there's Erick Anderson, one of the best that ever played. And in order to be able to get into the hall, if I were to be able to get in, I would then be able to say, know in my heart that I'm standing alongside the other greats that have played the game.
That's pretty
So
awesome. That's
yeah.
pretty
Yep.
awesome, man. I'm pulling for you big time. You and Kev Hardy are on the
Yep.
ballot together. We spent some good time together in Champaign. Uh,
Absolutely.
some really cool moments. Uh, where where are things for you now? Do you do mentorship when you get chances, like with players that are around you? Like, how does that? And to be honest with you, I don't even know that it even has to do with just specifically pinpointing football players. You're in. I would assume 'cause my mother was a school teacher for
Hmm.
over 20 years, and I went into the same I wanted to be a counselor. So I went to
Yep.
the same area of doing rehab education and to be a counselor because I just wanted to give back to people and just be able to take my life experiences and help others. But I'll say this, playing the game of football gave me such a different perception and an outlook on how life is, how it works, what it can be for you, and just knowing that my mentality because of how football works is, the one thing that I learned early, was the pain you were going to feel in practice, you were going to feel it anyway. You
Yeah.
do the conditioning, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it, and and at some point I started to realize that the idea of being a victim was not it was not present in football. It was unforgiving to those who wanted the easy way out. And that's what I love about the game of football. What they say is hard, but it's fair, and a lot of people say that about life. Those lessons that I know you're LB and you're a Big Ten LB, those lessons that you learned and how to approach your daily life and your daily regimen and how you handle things, how is your interactions with younger people, does that how much of a part does that play in the impact that you work to have with these young people every day?
Yeah, no, I think it has a tremendous impact. I think first and foremost, and again, I'm not somebody that is outwardly presenting myself as a former, you know, college linebacker, former NFL player, but people know, the community knows, and I'll have kids come. I think it gives me some credibility, it gives me the ability to at least sit down and allow the kids to sit and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the fact that they know that I've gone through something that either they want to go through or they
Mm-hmm.
admire or they've heard about, but they want to learn more about it. What was it that helped Erick Anderson come out of the north side of Chicago in the mid 80s to go to Michigan and then go and play in the NFL and that. So I think it gives credibility. But I think I really learned how to share that message by being a father.
Mm-hmm.
By sharing my experiences with my daughters to help them along the way. I think that my experience, my wife also played collegiate sports at Michigan. She was a field hockey player. So I think parenting for us was really coaching, and it was instilling the lessons that we learned and trying to shorten the learning curve of our daughters.
Mm-hmm.
I think Northeastern ice hockey and field hockey are different today because Cassidy, my daughter, played there. I
Mm-hmm.
think Michigan State field hockey is different today because my daughter Kendall played for Michigan State. So I've
Mm-hmm.
kind of passing that torch down to be able to instill some of the lessons that helped me to the next generation, whether it's my kids, kids that I coach, kids that I mentor. I talk with kids that come out of Shaker Heights High School that are going on to play, and just trying to share my experiences and trying to help them to say, here's what you're going to go through. It may be a little bit different. The scenery may be different. The times may be different, but there's some things that we know you're going to go through as a young person, whether you're going to be a college athlete or just going to school, or if you're just going to start work out of high school. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. These are some of the things you're going to go through. You talked about it. It's not, failure is not the end. It does not end and should not define you.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I've learned, especially, teaching students with different needs, kids that are in wheelchairs, kids with autism, kids that have other developmental disabilities or hurdles. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it really does not, learning is not supposed to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
Learning is uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It is challenging.
And those
And
types
whether
of kids make you remember that just take the smallest details and that has to be important. That's
Yes,
beautiful, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
feeling
no,
what you're saying though. So
no,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. But
Yeah.
but even even somebody might even be in a gifted program. Guess what? You're going to have to make yourself uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
to get better. Learning does not take place if you are comfortable. You are
Mm-hmm.
stagnant. You don't change if nothing makes you change. You don't learn. You don't retain unless you make yourself uncomfortable. So embrace being uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how you're going to get to that next level, whether it's athletically, whether it's academically, whether it is in a job. Embrace being uncomfortable, because without it, you're just status quo. But, Coach Schembechler, Coach Carr, Coach Moeller always used to say, you're either getting better or you're getting
Getting
worse.
worse.
You're
Mm-hmm.
not staying the same. If you're staying the
Can't
same,
say the
someone else
same.
out there is going to be getting better. So you're getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so embrace that process. I've had the pleasure of being able to coach a lot of different sports. I've coached girls JV lacrosse. I've coached field hockey. I've done this. One thing I always tell everybody, if you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing yourself hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
If
Gotta
you're
take
doing
chances.
everything right, you're not pushing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So embrace the mistakes, embrace making mistakes, to know, reflect on it, go back. What can you do differently? What did I learn? All of those things have to go with it, but embrace being uncomfortable, embrace making mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't, set your ego aside and just
Mm-hmm.
embrace the moment and do what you can. So,
Any last words? Any parting words? What do you want if there could be one thing that people remember Erick Anderson by for, what would that be that you want to be remembered by?
uh, I think that it was a great father, a great teammate, a great friend, someone that you didn't have to look over your shoulder to see if he was doing what was supposed to be done in order to accomplish the goal, whether it was on the field or off the field. you didn't have to check your six when I was there, because you knew that I was going to do what needed to be done. That's,
Mhm.
anything above and beyond that, I think, is icing on the cake. But I think that probably says it all.
All-American Erick Anderson of the University of Michigan. He's a Wolverine, always a Wolverine, but he's also my brother because, well, we're Butkus brothers. So,
We are.
and Lambert brothers, honestly.
There we go.
It's a beautiful thing to have the opportunity to talk to you. Uh, I've always hated Michigan. There's very few things that I like about Michigan, but I'll tell you what, I love me some Erick Anderson. I do know that. And, you know, it's always cool. It always puts things back in perspective when you have teams that you don't necessarily like, or different players or whatever it may have been that you created in your mind as a
Oh yeah.
player through the years, but then you talk to guys that you have such an admiration and such a respect for. I remember just seeing Michigan in Sports Illustrated, and it was kind of like back to back. Like, you guys owned the early 90s. Then Penn State kind of jumped in there and like stole a little bit of the thunder. Ohio State was
Yeah.
in there, as well, with Pace and Eddie George and those guys. I mean, it was a golden era, a golden age of Big Ten football. And you guys you guys ushered in the 90s the right way. So it's a pleasure watching you play, man. I've been a fan of yours. It was kind of cool. Well, I'll say super cool meeting you when I was able to meet you. Like, when you're old, like you said, you feel like you've known each other for so long because you know about one another for so long.
Absolutely.
I knew everybody who won the Buckets when I was trying to win the Buckets. And just to know I get the opportunity to move around with you guys, and then there's that mutual respect. It's like, it's a really, really, really cool thing. Very, very humbling. And man, everything that you represent and what you do is a testament of one, how you were raised, how you've taken it all in, and how you've made your way through life, and how that makes a difference. And I'm just happy that I get an opportunity on the National Football Foundation podcast to get the opportunity to capture these types of stories and these types of moments, because for one, it's long overdue. We need to hear your voice. We need to hear the voices of our greats. For two, you don't need the Hall of Fame to be acknowledged as one of the greats to ever do it. I'll be the first one to tell you that you are one of the greatest to do it. But I certainly love getting this on film, because the film don't lie. I
Film
love
don't lie.
I love getting this on film so that the National Football Foundation, the community, can see it. Get reacquainted with who Erick Anderson is, and hopefully maybe that makes a difference in the outcome of it. At some point,
Well,
you got to get it. That's how I see it.
no, and I appreciate it, LeVar, and I think that's one of the, as I reflect and look at it, and I think that's one of the reasons, again, that I go back to just being nominated, just being on the ballot is such an honor. I played at a different time. There was no social media. It
Yeah.
was regional games. There was not, we didn't have ESPN. We didn't have games. We didn't have the Big Ten network, the
Mm-hmm.
SEC network.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have all of that stuff where you could watch any game you wanted. Names that, from whether you're from the SEC, whether you were from, the Pac-10, who everybody is
Mm-hmm.
nowadays because they're on TV all the time.
The coverage is
If you
crazy.
yeah, it's coverage. I mean, other than Penn State and Notre Dame, the two true independents at the time,
Mm-hmm.
really there was very little national. So I do
Mm-hmm.
appreciate the opportunity
Yeah.
to come on, and it is an honor, and it would be an honor to get into the hall. And I do appreciate the words as far as not needing it, but it still would be nice.
Hey,
It still
man.
would be nice.
When they called me, I prematurely gave my announcement because I like had temporary shock. Like, I didn't even believe it. So I'm like sitting there, I'm like, hey, look at this. It's look what I got. And they were like, then I finished reading the letter. They were like, please don't release
Don't
this.
tell anybody.
I was like, oh. Sorry. I had
Well,
all
that's
that
good to
ready
know.
for you. So
That's good to know.
there you go. I'm pulling for you, man. And listen, it's a beautiful thing. He's a linebacker, Big Ten linebacker. I'm a linebacker, Big Ten linebacker. Always a beautiful thing when I get an opportunity to chop it up with a fellow linebacker, but absolutely just great to be able to have the brotherhood and the fellowship with a fellow football player, former guy. So I wish you all the best, man. It's great talking to you. Well, we'll be in touch, but
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
but thanks for coming on. This was good in the game. That's Erick Anderson. I'm Lavar Arrington. Make sure you subscribe and check out the podcast and the shows. Whole lot of great content, a lot of great guys I get an opportunity to talk to, and you get to hear their stories and all those good things. Just a beautiful thing, a brotherhood that is like none other. And you know what? It just continues and continues to be story after story of inspiration, encouragement, just super humbling whenever you get an opportunity to have these types of conversations. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you check out the podcast. If you missed any of the episodes, I hope you check those out as well. Subscribe, tell a friend. You know how it works. All right. I'm Lavar Arrington. Until next time, this is National Football Foundation's Good in the Game podcast.